So in today's lesson, we're going to be looking at using modal verbs, but in particular, we're going to be looking at using modal verbs in the past. So using them to be able to talk about experiences in the past tense. So let's take a look at this lesson now. So as a review, modal verbs are used to show degrees of possibility. How likely is, was an action to take place, and this is exactly what modal verbs do. And here is a list of some really important modal verbs: would, could, may, might, should, and must. And pretty much they all have slightly different usage. So unlike regular verbs, we can't change their form, say from eat to ate, or we can't simply add an ed on the end to make them into the past tense. We have to do something slightly different, which is the modal verb plus have plus the past participle of the verb. Past participle example would be eaten instead of eat or ate. Let's take a look at a quick example. I would have eaten chips for breakfast. So that's a quick example and probably quite true as well. I would happily eat chips for breakfast. But it's talking about the degrees of possibility that this would or could have happened in the past. So here's a bit more information on different types of modal verbs, and remember that they talk about degrees of possibility, of course, plus have in the past. And here's a table I've made that gives you a bit more description for each. Generally speaking, the modal verbs here are actions that didn't take place or that we are unsure of. Our modal verb plus have. So let's take a look at the first one. We have would have. So this is a past action that maybe we now wish we did do. So it was possible and we didn't do it, but it also expresses that now we kind of wish that the action took place. Could have is slightly different, as could have is a past action that there was possibility of happening, but quite simply it didn't happen. It doesn't particularly say whether we wanted it to happen. May have is slightly different, and might have is also very similar. It's talking about past events, and we're unsure whether they actually happened. So someone may have cheated on their test. We're not sure. Should have is generally talking about past actions and events that we now wish had happened, in a similar way that we would use would and should. They're quite similar. Whereas in a sort of different way, must have is talking about an action in the past that we really do believe did happen. So these are really all talking about different acts in the past that are not confirmed. We may have wished they happened, or we may think they happened, but generally they didn't, other than must. That is an action that we believed happened. So let's take another look at this. So we can talk about actions in the past we wish didn't happen, but did. And simply we can do that by adding not after the modal verb. So should not, could not, and then plus have to make it past tense. So we have our modal verb plus not plus have, and then of course plus the past participle. So this is for talking about, generally for talking about events in the past that we really wish didn't happen. Here's an example. I wish I wouldn't, the contraction would not, wouldn't have eaten chips for breakfast. Probably because the result is I feel unhealthy. So there we have the modal verb would plus not, contraction, and contractions always make us sound more native, wouldn't, plus have plus the past participle. Wouldn't have eaten. An event I'm sure I wish did not happen. Here's another example. I shouldn't have gone out. Again, possibly the result was not desirable. Talking about the past. I shouldn't have gone out. I should have stayed in for whatever reason. So the past participle in these two examples are completely changed from present and past tense. Eat, ate, eaten. In the final example, go, went, gone. And just to refresh you, here's an example of a past participle we don't particularly change from the past tense. I might not have slept in. So sleep, slept, slept. So we've got the present, sleep, past, slept, and the past participle is the same, slept. I might not have slept in. Now, you might be asking why we don't have the contraction for mightn't or might not. Now, generally speaking, we don't, especially in British English, contract might not to mightn't. It sounds slightly strange to do that, although some native speakers do. I might not have is definitely a bit more colloquial sounding than mightn't. So there are three examples of talking about events in the past that really we wish didn't happen, using modal verbs plus not. So let's jump into a live video and we'll run through some more examples. So let's begin with the modal verb would have, wouldn't have. So this is talking about something in the past and generally saying we kind of wish this action took place, that it did or didn't happen. We have a wish for this action. I didn't know you were sick. I would have, it would be the very British contraction, would have brought you medicine. So there we can see that in the past, I didn't know this person was sick. Had I known, if I knew, I would have brought you medicine. I wouldn't have cheated on my test. And you can see there that it's quite a British way almost to change the have for the of. Wouldn't have, would have, which is definitely a British contraction of the word. So I wouldn't have cheated on my test. It's something that I wish didn't happen. Now we've got the modal verb could have, couldn't have. And this is more talking about an action in the past where the possibility was there. So I could have helped you. It's something that there was a possibility to happen, but it didn't. I couldn't have cheated on my test, even if I knew the answers. So it's talking about something where there was a degree of possibility for this action that just didn't take place. When using the modal verbs may have and might have, it's more talking about something almost like a detective, an event or a situation, an action in the past that we feel happened, but we're unsure. So I may have cleaned the apartment. I can't really remember. I might have called to arrange a doctor's visit, but I'm not so sure. So may have, might have are talking about events in the past that we're unsure really happened. Should have, shouldn't have. Again, they're very similar to would. It's talking about a desirable action that really didn't take place. I shouldn't have would be an event that took place that we wish didn't. Oh, I shouldn't have taken your food. I'm sorry if you were stealing somebody's food. I should have, I should have, I should have helped you more on the weekend or whatever the example would be. So should is very similar to would, talking about past events that really you wish did or didn't happen. Should have, something that we wish happened. Should not have, shouldn't have, is more talking about something we wish we did not do. And finally, we have the modal verb must have, mustn't have. And this is generally, if we say must have, it's for something that we are really sure happened in the past. I'm sure they must have checked our bags at the airport. Oh, they mustn't have checked our bags. I didn't see them do it. So it's talking about things that we are, actions that we're sure did or did not happen. So that's a run through of using modal verbs in the past, really for actions that did and didn't happen. And they often generally show a wish for something that could have happened, or maybe degrees of possibility too, for something that we think did happen in the past.